Hi everyone, welcome to the David Ross Education Trust YouTube channel. We're absolutely delighted tonight to be joined by GB Paralympic Rower Ben Pritchard, who's going to take us through a story about his life and also his aspirations and aims for the future. We also have with us to begin with Shane Ward, the Head of Sport for the David Ross Education Trust, who's just going to say a few words before Ben starts. We do have the chat open. We have that being moderated as well. But if you have any questions for Ben while we're live, please put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them as best as possible. Thank you very much, Shane. Just hand over to you.
Thanks, Alex. So, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight with our session with Ben. Ben's going to be talking through his journey today. We're going to be looking at some of the impact of COVID on elite sport and the Paralympic Games and how that's kind of impacted on elite performers. Then we're going to be putting some of your questions that you've submitted to Ben. They're going to be tough ones, put you on the spot a bit, Ben. And then we're going to finish off. Ben's got a bit of a task to set you, which would help and support your sport. So before I just pass to Ben, just wanted to say a big thank you, Ben, on behalf of the David Ross Education Trust and everybody watching tonight. And thank you for kind of giving up your time to offer this opportunity to all of our students as well. So really appreciate it, Ben. Thank you very much. And I'll pass over to you.
No, you're welcome, Shane. Thank you very much for having me. So good evening, everyone that is here this evening. First message I want to say is that I hope you're all keeping safe and well during the lockdown. And I know that we're all frustrated, right? We've been stuck in our own homes. And I know for you guys, there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel and you're going to be going back to school next week. So that's pretty exciting. But some of the things I talk about tonight may help you put some new coping methods in place, you know, for any future frustrations or any future issues you may have, and also help you deal with the frustrations of being stuck in lockdown. I know whilst you're going back to school, the rest of the UK is still going to be locked down. So hopefully some tips here for you to deal with that. So who am I? In short, my name is Benjamin Pritchard and I'm a Paralympic hopeful, and hopefully I'll be going to Tokyo later this year. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm a man that loves sport, just like most of you, an ordinary person who lives a day-to-day life but loves watching, playing and doing sport. However, the reason I'm here talking to you tonight is down to 2 seconds of my life when I was just 22 years old. We'll get to that bit later, but first let's wind the clocks back. Sport has always played a pivotal part in my life, but my journey to the international stage started way before the wheelchair. Not being able to play rugby due to an eye operation at an early age, it meant that my PE lessons were spent running around the bottom fields while the rest of the boys played rugby. So naturally, I began running cross country for the school. And it was on one of these meets that my then biology teacher, a lady called Mrs. Smith, suggested that I should take up the sport of triathlon. I hadn't even heard what a triathlon was at this stage. I was about 14, 15, didn't know what a triathlon was. It wasn't as popular as it is now. But the rest, as they say, is history. I've been fortunate enough to represent Great Britain in triathlon at age group level at both the European and World Championships, placing 12th and 44th respectively. I was never happier than racing my bike. I've been to Spain, Turkey, London, Canada, so many amazing places, Belgium. But before I continue, I would like to share with you a short video to give you all a bit of an insight into what has brought me here this evening.
Okay, everyone, so we're just going to play a short video that Ben sent over to us. We will be on mute during this and we'll come back after we've watched this video with Ben. Thank you.
I got told 12 months ago I'll never walk again. And yet here I am, still trying, still doing physio, not accepting it, not giving in to my disability. I'm not disabled, I'm abled. On the 10th of September, I was points tracing, where you have to gain a certain number of points to go up the next category. And the morning had gone well, and I had time trial well, and And then it came to the road race, and I thought, yeah, this is where I want to make the mark and get in that front group.
I think it was the 10th of September.
Well, I can remember it vividly. It was a Saturday night,
We got out for an evening meal with friends.
and we were celebrating, to be fair.
We didn't really hear anything, which is unlike Ben. You know, he'd ring to say, oh, I've done this, or I'm bummed out, I didn't have a great race, or whatever, but we didn't hear from him.
Rain started, people got a bit twitchy, and I thought, right, a move's going to go here, move up towards the front of the race. We did a couple of laps. On the bend, you go up a little bit, then you dive down, up, hairpin down, and on the bottom left-hand corner. Tried to stand up, get to my feet, but fall instantly back to the floor. I got put on a spinal board, put in the back of an ambulance, and I remember taking a photo to show my boss to say that I wouldn't be in work the next day, and then dropping the phone.
Had a phone call about 9 o'clock saying Ben's in hospital, he's had a bit of a slight bump.
The next thing I remember is being rubbed in my chest by the paramedic.
One of the hardest things was that we didn't know that the true extent of it at first.
As the week progressed, we started to realise that things weren't as simple as we thought.
A doctor took a look at my scan and said, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to be able to walk again.
I think I still am hoping beyond hope, really, that there'll be some improvement in his condition. I worry dreadfully about what the future holds.
That is the main question I ask myself. Does this mean I can't ride my bike again? Unfortunately, the answer is yes.
It was one day, I remember my mum and dad sent a picture home, and it was Ben in a chair. That was the day Ben said, look, this is going to be me, and that's the way it is. And, you know, I think that picture for me is a very personal picture. You know, I accepted, yeah, my brother's going to be a paraplegic.
Every hour of the day was broken down into a slot. Doctor's appointments, scans. And I remember looking at it, and then on the Tuesday it said, sport, all afternoon. I thought, oh, yes, I can still do sport. And I kind of said to myself, just make it to Tuesday. Tuesday comes. Big sign on the door. Sport is cancelled. Sat there sobbing like a little baby. All of my emotions of the past 3 weeks have come spilling out. I'm never going to walk again. What am I going to do?
So guys, Ben sent me over that video this afternoon, and it's obviously truly a moving video. I found it very moving and really made me think. So I just want to hand back over to Ben. I know you're going to speak through that a little bit, what the children have heard there, what the pupils have heard. Thank you, Ben.
No problem. So you would have picked up me sat in the corridor. So what am I going to do? Well, at this point, as the video said, I'm sat in the corridor of Stoke Mandeville Hospital, crying my eyes out. The raw emotions of the past 4 weeks have come spilling out. I was at the lowest point I've ever been in my life. People are walking past me in the corridor, not knowing what to say, how to help. I'm just literally sat there shaking and crying. After a while, I returned to my bed on St. David's Ward, happily named because I'm a Welshman, and set myself 4 goals. Return to live independently, return to sport, return back to work, and return to family life. I now had 2 options. I either treated rehab like a training program, or I sat on my bed and wallowed in self-pity, not helping those giving their time to help me. I made the decision that I didn't want to be reliant on everybody else. I needed to know how I could do the best I could to make the best out of this new life. It wouldn't have been fair on me to keep relying on my mum and dad, the nurses and doctors, to continue my life. I had to make sure that I could make the best out of this new life. Luckily, as my parents will tell you and my friends will tell you, I'm very stubborn. So it allowed me to remain focused on making the best of a bad situation. The first time I got into my manual wheelchair, I remember pushing to the lift, which, if you can see the fish tank behind me, was probably from here to the fish tank away. And I got there, I was out of breath, I was sweating, and I had no idea how Paralympians could train for competitive sport and also live their day in a wheelchair. I was honestly gobsmacked about how ignorant I'd been in the past. But like I said, I was very fortunate to go to Stoke Mandeville Hospital. It's the National Spinal Centre in the UK, but also the birthplace of the Paralympic movement. So being the birthplace of the Paralympics, they place a huge emphasis on the benefit a sport can have on a patient after an accident or a life-changing injury. Now, I know sport is one of the main pillars of your schools, so hopefully you can see that you get a benefit from being an academic and also having sport, drama or art to fulfill or enrich your lives. Now, during my time at hospital, I was able to try a variety of sports. I'm just going to read out a list here. Wheelchair rugby, basketball, swimming, fencing, weightlifting, tennis, ping pong, even rock climbing. But my favourites had to be wheelchair rugby or wheelchair basketball. Now, you may ask why, considering I'm now rowing for Great Britain. But for those hours where I was playing wheelchair basketball or wheelchair rugby, I was not disabled. I was just playing with my mates, the friends I'd made in hospital. It was just like you guys do in your break times at school. You're going to play football or hockey or rugby or basketball with your friends. That's all we were doing. We'd made good friendships in the hospital, and for those hours a week, we could just go and have fun and play sport. We were no longer disabled. We were just having a great time. So you might ask, how did I end up rowing? Well, on a Tuesday morning at Stoke Mandeville, every patient, had a 500 metre and 250 metre row, which the physios kind of used to make sure that you weren't losing fitness or you could still keep moving and help keep the weight off you, because obviously having gone from an active life to now losing half the function in my body, there was a risk that I could have put on weight and just not been interested in doing sport. So the first secret I want to share with you is that when I first got on a rowing machine, I absolutely hated it. Couldn't stand it. I found it so boring. You sat there, you pulled the chain back and forth, and that was all you did. And I absolutely hated it. And I actually remember phoning my friend from Bermuda and she was asking, are you having a good time in hospital? And I said, I just tried rowing. Gosh, it was really boring. And I'm definitely not going to choose rowing as my Paralympic sport. If I'm going to go down this route of being a Paralympian or trying to be a Paralympian, I'm not going to choose rowing. Well, the next lunchtime, I was saying to a guy at hospital, a man called John Cook, that I found it really boring. I don't know why we have to do it. Can't I just go and do basketball or something else instead? And he told me, oh, you do know there's a leaderboard behind the physio's door? Well, that was like a red rag to a bull. I knew then and there that I was going to leave that hospital being top of that leaderboard. I didn't quite make it. I came third, but the people above me can walk around. So I'll take that as a win if you don't mind. But at Stoke Mandeville, once you're deemed medically fit, you're allowed to come and go as you need. As long as you're back on the ward by 10 p.m, you're allowed to go out to the shops and come back as long as you don't miss your appointments. But with home being 4 hours away in Swansea and my London house not being accessible, I was pretty much left to stay on the wards or try and occupy myself within the grounds of the hospital. Well, every now and again they had this evening, and I used to call it like an after-school club. But organisations would come in on a Tuesday or a Thursday evening and talk to you about their sport, their hobbies, their art, whatever it may be. And on one of my first evenings, or on one of my first weeks at hospital, British Rowing came in, and they came in and they sat us down and they gave us all a go on the rowing machine with the adaptive chairs and everything. And I was dreadful, so bad. Like, they didn't even want to know. I was so bad. However, with the new knowledge of this leaderboard given to me by John Cook. By the time I left hospital, it was a different story. Luckily for me, British Rowing came back on the week of my discharge. How lucky, right? So they came on my first week in hospital and also my last week in hospital. So on the week of my discharge, the 23rd of December, British Rowing returned to hold another session. And my hard work through rehab had made a difference. My times had improved to such a point where I was invited to go to the Paralympic trials in January. Now, I got to the Paralympic trials in January and I was never going to make the team. And I remember rocking up to the Redgrave Pinsent Rowing Lake, two of our all-time Olympic greats. This boathouse was named after them. And I wheeled in and we went to this meeting room and they were trying to tell you, you're going to be going down the course and doing a 2K time trial. I had never seen a rowing boat to this point. I didn't know. And it was really embarrassing. So on my first venture at the Redgrave Pinsent Rowing Lake, I was tied to a pontoon or to like a floating object with a coach holding a rope, and I was pushed off, learning the basics of a rowing stroke as Paralympic champions, Olympic champions were rowing up and down behind me. It was so embarrassing. And it's taken me 3 years to get any kind of speed either on the water or on a rowing machine. Now, as a very determined and focused person, it was incredibly frustrating to be so slow or to be so far behind the pace. I wanted it and I wanted it now. I'm not a very patient person, so it's quite difficult when I was so far off the pace, 3 minutes, 4 minutes off the pace. It was a long way to make up. But I went to Italy with the squad in 2017, and I remember sitting down with the head coach, a man called Tom Dyson, and I said, look, I'm 3 minutes behind Andy on the rowing machine and even further behind him on the water. Is there any point in me carrying on? Is it worth my while? Is it worth your time, your investment for me to continue? And he sat me down and he kind of explained, look, Ben, it's not as if you've just gone from being an age group level triathlete, 12th in Europe and 44th in the world, to trying a new sport. You've lost half the function in your body. Now you need to give your body and everything around you time to settle. You need to learn how to live in your wheelchair. You need to learn how to just move on a daily basis and not get too tired from having to move around in a wheelchair before you can find any speed. I'd also spent 3 months in hospital and lost half the function of my body, and he was very adamant that I needed to remember that and not to be so hard on myself. So like I said, I needed to realise that I come from a dead stop in my life, and it was going to take 2, 3, 4 years to get to any kind of competitive level. And last year, luckily in 2019, I say last year because it's the last year we raced, in 2019 I managed to hit that level. The training history, training volume were now there, so I was able to illustrate boat speed. So what does this mean for you athletes out there right now that might be thinking, oh, so-and-so is so much better than me, I'm never going to make the first team, second team, national team, regional team. It just means trust the process, keep on going, and you never know where it may take you. Now, I just want to kind of illustrate that to you in percentages and times. This might sound a bit boring, but please bear with me. At the start of the 2018 and 2019 season, I set myself the following goals: a 90% 2,000 metre ergo time, an 88% 5,000 metre ergo time. I wanted to be invited out to the Spanish training camp. I wanted to race at Varese. I wanted to race at a World Cup. And I wanted to break 10 minutes 30 on the water for 2,000 metres. Now, you might ask why percentage times. Well, in rowing, the scientists and the coaches have come up with a time where they think is going to win the gold medal at the next Paralympics or next World Championships, and that's known as 100% gold medal time. So by me saying I wanted 90% of that time, it should make sense to you now. So at the end of the 2018 and 2019 season, I finished 4th in the world by 0.97 seconds, and I completed the following. I set a 1,000 metre indoor world record at 99.12%. I set a 2 kilometre ergo PB at 94%. I broke my 5,000 PB. I got to go to training camp in Spain. I also had an 88% 5,000 metre PB time for 5,000 metres. I was invited to race at Varese, where I finished 3rd in both regattas, with greater understanding on sustaining a higher pace through the last third of the race, which is always the hardest point. I was invited to race at the Poznan World Cup, where I got 3rd. and I was selected to represent Great Britain at the World Championships. Now, this was going to be my first World Championships. Not only was it my first World Championships, but it was also the qualification regatta for Great Britain to get a space at the Paralympics. So I felt a huge weight on my shoulders. I was chosen to try and get a GB boat on that start line in Tokyo this year. And I'm glad to say that by coming forth with a new PB of 9 minutes and 42 seconds, I managed to do that. I got to the place at the Tokyo Paralympics. So where did that leave me? Well, I've now got 2 new world records. Now it's 3. I set one the other day. I'm a British indoor champion. I'm in first place for selection to race at the Tokyo 2021 Paralympics. But like many of you, my life is currently on pause, waiting to see how coronavirus affects us all. So we're going to now talk about coping strategies that I've developed during this whole COVID pandemic, and hopefully you can take some of these away with you. These I learned in hospital and with my time at British Rower. Now, like any athlete, my main coping mechanism has to immerse myself in training. Like doing training whenever I can, whatever ability I can get. If I start to feel down, I might go for a push, I might go for a row, I might lift some weights. Because funny enough, as an international rower, I'm pretty good at training. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I'm sure you all share that feeling with me. Now, I realise that this global pandemic is, of course, bigger than sport, and my loss of racing last year in 2019, 2020, by no means compares to some of the losses some people have faced. I've had COVID myself, and I remember every day what privileged position I am to go training and to race and hopefully race at the Paralympics. I'm very privileged, but it still means that I get grumpy days. I get frustrated. I had to mourn the loss of the games last year. As rowers, and I'm just going to go into that in a bit more detail, because as rowers, we spend 6 days a week, 3 times a day training, countless hours training for that one moment to cross that racing line at a Paralympics or Olympic Championships. And to hear that everything that you've aimed for the past 4 years, after a tragedy in your life, has now been postponed, or we didn't know then that it was going to be postponed. We just thought it might be cancelled, but that it was not going to go ahead when you wanted it to go ahead, really does suck. And I can't emphasize that enough. And suck is probably not the right word, but it hurts. It hurt big time that we weren't going to be able to go out and showcase what we were doing. I felt that I was in the shape of my life last year, and I was ready to go and race. So what does this mean for you guys? I'm an international athlete here telling you that I get to go training every day. I get to lift weights. I get to eat nice food. I get paid to be an athlete, but I still get frustrated with lockdown. So what I'm trying to say to you is it's important to give yourself that moment to feel frustrated, to feel angry, to feel the fact that you miss your friends and your family, that you miss going to the shops, you miss going to get coffee, you miss doing whatever it is you miss. You're allowed to feel annoyed and frustrated and angry at that. It's only natural, but please don't let it encompass your whole day. If you wake up and you feel a bit down in the dumps and a bit grumpy, feel it. Feel that way, but only feel it for a short period of each day. And I really struggled with this at the start. I kind of went on this downward spiral of feeling really sucky and hating everything. Why am I still training in lockdown if the games aren't going ahead? Why am I doing it? And I linked with the GB psychologist, and he's given me some things which hopefully can help you guys progress. And if you go back to what I said about setting myself goals when I was in hospital, when I found out I was never going to walk again, the first thing I did was set 4 goals. Well, it's the same thing. Break your day down, make daily plans, make weekly plans to satisfy your mind's need of having to make plans. We're humans. Humans like to know what's going on and what you're going to be doing next. So make those plans. Make enough plans each week and each day, because it's important that it'll give you a routine and it'll know what you're doing. And I'm not saying these have to be huge, massive plans. It could be breaking the day down simply to brushing your teeth, washing your hair, having a shower, going for a walk, doing an hour worth of maths, doing an hour of English, etc., etc., etc. Break your day down into little slots and fulfill those things. And every time you complete something that was on your plan, tick it off, because it feels really good when you do. Now, that might sound really simple. And the reason why it's important to me is because when I was in hospital and I was having a really tough time, I was 4 hours away from my family and away from my friends, and I couldn't see anyone, and I was, struggling emotionally with the feeling that I'm never going to be able to walk again. My dad sent me a speech by a US admiral. Now I'll send it to Alex and show him later, and hopefully they can send it all out to you. But he breaks down the reason why Marines or Navy SEALs make their bed every day. Now we think it's just because they're trying to be, clean or hygiene, etc. But he tells us that it's because it's the first task of the day completed. If you get out of your bed every day and the first thing you do is make it, well, that's the first task of the day completed. So you're in a good position to go off and make the other tasks and finish the other tasks. And then if you've gone away and you've had a really great day, you can come home and your bed's made. Fantastic. But if you get up that morning and you make your bed and then you go out and you fall out with a friend, or you've had a really bad day, you lose a rugby game, you lose a football game, or whatever it may be, you come back to a made bed. Oh, great. You don't have to make your bed. You can just get straight in and it's all comfy. It's actually quite surprising how that mental shift helps. And I still do this every day, as I break my day down into 2-hour slots and I tick it off. Of course, for me, I've got a training program which helps that, but you guys have a school class timetable, and that should help you set enough plans each day for you to complete them. The second point is one I raised earlier, which is take 10 minutes a day to reflect on how you felt or how you're feeling. Now, this could be listening to music, pottering in the garden, sitting in a room away from your family, reading a book, streaming on Twitch, playing Call of Duty, whatever it may be. Just take 10 minutes yourself to go away and say, I felt like this today. I felt really bad, or I felt really great. Great. Take 10 minutes to learn why you felt frustrated or why you felt good. That's important. You need to acknowledge that you felt really bad or you felt really good, but then you also need to learn why you felt frustrated or why you feel really good. I keep a journal every day of my training, what went well, what went wrong, what am I proud of, what can I change? It's the same kind of process. And the third one is, in lockdown, we are all missing things, right? We're missing seeing our friends, we're missing going shopping, we're missing having coffees. So what are you guys missing? Think about this long and hard. What are you missing? Are there ways that you can fill this space? My example is that I'm a massive coffee snob. Now, I know this is a first world problem, but I like a good coffee. And obviously at the moment, coffee shops aren't open. You can't go in and sit down. You can get takeaway coffee, but it's not quite the same. You can't go and sit down. You can't enjoy. You can't sit there with a paper or flick through your phone. You can't relax. So I've created a virtual coffee club with some of my friends on Instagram or friends I grew up with, and we send each other bags of coffee that we've recently tried. And then we try and meet up on a Zoom call and have a coffee and chat it through. And I know it sounds silly, but actually it really helps and links me back with my friends that I can't see at the moment. And then start making plans for once lockdown is over. Boris Johnson last week announced this new roadmap that we have. So you guys now have a load of dates that you can kind of put in your diary as hopeful goals. And you can say, well, on this day, I should be allowed to do X, Y, and Z. It's exciting. There's light at the end of the tunnel, guys. Stay positive about that. So what does this mean for you? Well, hopefully tonight, in this short time, I've illustrated you to this evening how hard work, determination, focus, and trust in a process can help you achieve those goals, aims you set yourself. So whether you're training for a sporting event or trying to cope with the days in lockdown, remember, it's not about being the best you can be right now. It's about being the best you can be tomorrow and the day after that. Now, thank you for listening to me around the while. I am Ben Pritchard, and I am able. Now, I can take some questions if any of you guys have got some.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ben. So many things to think about there for all of our students. We have had a few questions come in already, Ben, just in the chat. Rini has asked a question, and I think this maybe relates to when you were able-bodied and now being a wheelchair user, but how do you work out now as a wheelchair user? And that might be linked into how you work out now to how you used to work out. I'm sure there's a lot of things that you're still able to do, just differently as a wheelchair user.
No, the reason why I say I am Ben Pritchard and I am able at the end of the chat, because that is a mantra that I tell myself. the world that we live in, unfortunately, is designed to make you feel like you can't do things. Social media, people posting things that, falsities or make themselves look better than they are. So I always tell myself, my name is Ben Pritchard and I'm able to do anything I set my mind to. And look, I'm not saying it was easy and it was a big change, but I just try. And I know that sounds silly, but there are things in the gym sometimes where I'm just like, oh, I'm going to try and do that. Okay, I don't know how I do it. For example, I can still do pull-ups, and I think my S&C coach thinks I'm a bit crazy because sometimes we'll be in the gym and he'll be wedging my legs into a machine so they don't move. And if somebody walked past, they'd probably report it for abuse or something. But because some of the positions I get into in the gym, and I'll try and send some photos over so you can see them, are a bit crazy. I'm getting strapped to the bench and it's just all about trial and error. And I think that's the one thing I've learned about Paralympic sport is that there's always a will and a way to do things. You've just got to be willing to try it. And I think when I first had my accident, that was something I was a bit scared of doing, getting out of the wheelchair and trying something, because your wheelchair is kind of your safety blanket. Or, in my wheelchair, I'm not disabled. I can do most things for myself. I can pour myself a cup of tea. I can lift weights up if I want to. But once I'm out of that wheelchair, I have no balance. I have no core control. So everything becomes a bit more difficult. I don't stand up when I'm out of the wheelchair, by the way. I mean sit on the floor and do things. And I think the one thing I've learned in my 3 years at rowing is that you just got to be willing to try it. Some things you try and they really don't work, but at least you've given it a go. And I think that's the one thing I've changed since an able-bodied athlete is the willingness to try something new. When I was a triathlete, I was very determined. I knew what worked and I knew what worked for me. I wasn't very willing to adapt and change. Whereas obviously if you've lost half the function of your body, you're kind of forced to adapt and change. And that's a lesson. I always say that the wheelchair is the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me, or my disability is the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's the best thing because it's changed so much of my life for the better. And obviously it's the worst thing because it's taken away my ability to walk, to ride my bike and all the other things that come with that. But it's taught me a lot about myself and the ability to change and adapt and overcome situations. And without this experience, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys now.
Brilliant. I hope that answers your question, Irene. Lots to take away from that one. Thank you, Ben. We've had a question come in from Molly, and this kind of relates, I think, just as you had the accident. So what strategies did you use to cope at the beginning?
This is a really good question, Molly, and it's quite a long one to answer. So when the doctor told me I was never going to walk again, it was literally as if, do you want a cup of tea? And I think the video talked about it a little bit, but I was on my bed, the curtains were pulled round, my mum was holding my hand and my dad was sat at the end of the bed, and then all of a sudden the registrar pulls the curtain back literally like this much, and she says, "Oh, Benjamin Pritchard, I'm afraid you're never going to walk again," and then just turned around and walked away. That was my moment of dealing with it. She said it so casually, so flippantly, that I just had to absorb it and take it in. And I looked at my mum, she was crying. I looked at my dad and he was looking at me for a reaction, and I just didn't know how to take it. And then you spend 1 day in hospital, 2 days in hospital, 3 days, and you start to live this new life of you being in the wheelchair. And by doing it on a daily basis, you kind of get used to it, you kind of adapt, you get more comfortable with being in that situation. And the one thing I noticed is that when you got visited by family and friends, they were always more upset or more shocked by the situation, because they could only see you once a week, once a month, whatever it may be. They didn't get the daily changes. And I think for me, because I've had to live it, you just kind of get used to it. And I know that sounds really flippant, but it's something I work on now as I go into spinal centres or spinal units, and not necessarily to speak to the newly injured patient, but to speak to their family and show their family that everything's going to be okay. And I think the coping strategies I use, like I said, is breaking down my day into tasks, getting out, making the bed, brushing my teeth, because when you're in a wheelchair, those small remedial tasks are a lot harder than you may think. Transferring out of a bed, etc., etc., etc.
I think this question is from Logan, and he's kind of said, what do you miss most about riding your bike. So the past, do you miss that kind?
So I specialise in triathlons and time trials, and on my time trial bike I had a zip disc wheel, which for those that don't know, it's basically a solid wheel at the back on your time trial bike, and it's more aerodynamic because wind can't pass through and wind goes around it, but it makes like a noise when it gets up to speed, and I really miss hearing that noise. I just really miss sitting on the bike and just hearing the sound of the pedals going over and the sound of the tyres on the road. I know that sounds really weird, but I still love cycling. I still love it. I still watch it on TV. I still watch my friends. I keep a track of how my mates are racing it. Luckily for me, I've got a guy who's on the Pro Tour, and my other friend is trying to break the indoor hour record and has won multiple medals. And, I'm pretty well connected to the cycling world still, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you still kind of got that link there, haven't you? And seeing how they're getting on. And
yeah, so just because I can't cycle doesn't mean I have to cut myself from the sport entirely. There's different ways for me to get involved.
Yeah. Aliana's asked, how do you stay motivated?
That's a good one. I am over judgmental of myself. I never think I'm good enough, and I think that self deprecation or that self doubt is what drives me to be better, and that basically serves my determination. Me coming fourth in the world wasn't good enough. It was my first World Championships, and people can tell me, fourth in the world is amazing, but to me it wasn't good enough. And I'm sure, if I'm touch wood, if I'm lucky enough to go out to the Paralympic Games and get a medal, it won't have been good enough. It's funny, just yesterday when I was training, we did 10 250s at race pace, and I was looking at the times, and the times were good, but I came off the water, and my coach was like, how did you find that? I said, it was rubbish. And he looked at his watches, and he was like, no, they were really good times. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't row well. And it's just funny, like sometimes that is enough to keep you motivated and determined to carry on.
I can work. Phoebe's asked, what do you do in your free time?
I mentioned earlier that I'm a massive coffee snob, so I make a lot of coffees. I've got a posh coffee machine in the background there. And on a normal day, we train between 7:30 in the morning until around 3 p.m. And then I get home and it's flick on the PS4 or PS5 and stream some Call of Duty. I spend a lot of time playing Call of Duty with my friends, and I spend too much time on a PS, on a console. I also have a little dog. I don't know where he is at the moment. He's walking around somewhere, but I spend a lot of time walking him as well. Just trying to relax. It's all about recovery. So I try not to do a lot of things when I'm at home. If I'm sat down, it's great.
And just Logan again, he's just asked a question about your favourite sports. I know you did mention there are a few different sports you tried. So yeah, I know obviously cycling would be one, but
I think there, but I'm Welsh, right? So rugby is possibly my favourite sport. My favourite sport to watch on TV. I watch every single rugby game I can. I listen to 3 rugby podcasts. Both my brothers play. My mum's an international referee. So I spend a lot of time watching or just observing sport. I'm a massive sports fan. And to me, I'm still not over that yet, And I think that's the cool thing about being a hopeful debutant at the Games, is that I'm still a massive sports fan, I train with 2 Paralympic gold medalists. How cool is that, And, I'm in a building where there's people with double Olympic gold medals or double silver medals. It's super cool as a sports fan to do my job. And one day, hopefully, you guys can join me, and maybe you'll bump into me at a sporting event and you'll be like, oh, I remember this talk and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's just, rugby is my favourite sport to watch on TV.
Cool. No, we'd absolutely love that, Ben. I'm sure we're all behind you. Absolutely. I know Shane had some questions as well for you, Ben.
Cool. Just got a few, Ben. So what would you say is your greatest moment or achievement to date?
So I got 2. My lads picked 2. The first am I allowed to pick two, Shane?
Yeah, go for it. You're in charge.
So the first one was at the European Championships in Turkey in Alanya for triathlon. And it was the morning of my race. And I was out there with a couple of my friends racing. And we were walking down to the course with our bikes and our wetsuits and everything, getting ready. And as you can imagine, Turkey is ridiculously hot in summer. And the sun was coming up on this beach above the sea. And Natural Blues by Moby was playing. And that, to me, is one of my favourite memories of all time. And every time that song comes on, it just takes me back to that moment. That's probably one of my great, sat listening to that song, being like, I've made it here. I've made it to the European Championships. I deserve to be here. All the training has paid off. That's one of my favourite moments. And then I guess my second moment was sitting down and telling my parents, after everything we've been through in the last 4 years, that I was going to go to the World Championships and try and secure Britain a place. It didn't matter where I came. It was really humbling and one of my greatest, proudest moments to be asked to go and try and get Britain a spot at the Paralympics. And hopefully this year in April, I think on the 4th, 5th or 6th of April, we're going to be told who is going to go to the Paralympics for GB this year, and hopefully I get to sit down and tell my parents that it's me.
We've had another question come in, Ben, just on the chat. It probably links a little bit to what you've just said. So, what's the best thing you've enjoyed since the incident?
I met my fiance after my accident. Now, not to get too soppy for school kids, but when I had an accident, I never thought it would be easy to find somebody to date again. The world, like I said earlier, isn't designed for people with disabilities. And I met Megan through a mutual friend, and she didn't even bat an eyelid about the disability. That's great. But also, I'm an international athlete, so that has a lot of challenges. I'm away a lot, I train a lot, I have to sleep a lot, and it takes a special person to kind of deal with that. And if it wasn't for my wheelchair and moving home to Wales, I wouldn't have found Megan. And I think that's one of my favourite things. I know that sounds quite soppy, but
no, okay,
yeah,
no,
it's right.
right. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, I'll just ask two more, Ben, if that's all right. So, what advice would you give somebody who maybe has a disability, is in school, and how they can get into sports? What advice would you give them?
So, obviously, depending where your school is, you can write to your council, and they'll have an onboarding officer or somebody that's involved in disability sports. And they can signpost you to various charities, various organisations that have an adaptive arm, or send me a message. And I mean this, or send Shane or Alex or your teachers a message and ask them to reach out to me. I am quite well connected now in the disability sport world, so if I can't point you in the right direction, I will know somebody that can. And I mean that. Please do. If you've got a disability and you're struggling to get involved, please do reach out. I'm sure we'll find you a home. You don't have to try and go and be a Paralympian. You don't have to try and go and get medals. There are organisations out there for about having sport for fun, and I really back that. So please send me a message.
Okay, and then just the last one. This is a bit more around the Paralympics. So just the coverage of the Paralympics has obviously increased massively, especially from London 2012. But kind of what changes have you noticed, and what would you like to see around Paralympic sport in the future, improvements-wise?
Yeah, I read this earlier, and it's an incredible question. And I think we are very fortunate that Channel 4 has invested a lot into the Paralympics, and without them, we wouldn't be shown at all. But if you go back even to the Rio Paralympics, there are so many sports that still aren't covered. Now, at the Olympics, every single sport is covered. Every single sport gets some airtime, whether that's online, the red button, mainstream TV, Sky Sports, whatever it may be. Every sport is shown. And the Paralympics is still a little bit behind that, with only certain sports being shown on TV. And I think in the future, that's kind of where I'd like to be. I would like to get an equal airtime or share, for every sport, because I think that's important to showcase every sport. Now, it's going to take some time to get there, and we're a little bit behind the Olympics at the moment, but with the rate of growth, I'm hoping it's going to get there soon. And I'm incredibly grateful to Channel 4 for even wanting to invest. It's pretty cool. I think it's really exciting. And the last leg is one of my favourite programs. I watch it every Friday, and the 3 guys on there have a real different way of covering the Paralympics, and I think that's really exciting.
Great, thank you. I think all the questions for now, really. But do you have a task or something for the students? Is that right?
Yeah, if that's okay. So we all know that COVID is an infectious disease. We all know it spreads like wildfire. And as an athlete, when I go to training, everything is taken care of me. We get temperature checked on the way in. We stay 2 meters apart from each other. We have to wear PPE. Everything is in place. But obviously, this year, hopefully, I'm going to have to travel to some races. I'm going to have to go to Europeans in 4 weeks' time. I'm hopefully going to go to Turkey if I get selected. So my task for you guys is to think about what things would you do to limit your risk to COVID when traveling to a game, an event, a championship, whatever it may be. What can you do as an athlete yourself to minimize those risks? You don't have to send me or tell me what they are. You just have to take 10 minutes and write down some things that it might be. For example, for me and my wheelchair, if I'm getting on an aeroplane, I don't want people touching my wheelchair because I don't want their potentially COVID germs off their hands on the fabric of my wheelchair. So I've got to come up with ways that I put something on my wheelchair that they can touch a plastic overlay or something instead. So those are the kind of things I want you to think about now that you're starting to return to school. What are the things you guys are going to do to limit your exposure to coronavirus? That would be great.
Ben, we've had sorry, Shane.
Well, that's the question.
We've had a few final questions and things come into the chat. So we've had a few good luck messages for you. So Henry wishes you good luck in your future career and obviously towards the Paralympics as well. Molly says good luck and she's found this very inspirational and motivating. And we've had a parent governor, Tim, who's about to undertake a sponsored row. I'll be rowing the length of the Thames Gateway, 60 kilometres.
Oh, nice.
What advice would you give anyone who is preparing for a challenge like this, 60-kilometre row?
It's a long way. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, Tim. It's a long way. I don't envy you for a start. That's the first thing I want to say. One of my favourite authors, and she's a woman explorer, and she has swam the Antarctic. She's like a cold water swimmer and an ultra marathon runner. And she does some really cool expeditions. And she got interviewed once about what was the hardest thing of this challenge you're about to do, and she said the start. And what she meant by that was, if you sit there and you keep thinking that it's 60,000 meters you've got to row, you're never going to want to do it. So you've just got to start. And I think if you go into that process of the hardest thing is to start. If you're writing an essay, writing anything, the hardest bit is writing the first line. But once you start, you can kind of flow. The other thing, Tim, is just make sure you fuel up. Don't over rush it. Just keep fueling yourself and keep pacing yourself. I think 60,000 meters is a long way, and I'm sorry to say that to you, but it is. So good luck.
Thank you. Just a few final. So just a lot of thank yous and good lucks. And thank you for being so positive. We've had come in as well. So no, brilliant. And then a few people asking if you're on Twitter. Just kind of follow your journey. So we've put that in the conversation chat bar as well there, Ben. Be interesting to kind of follow you.
I've got some time, so if there are any last minute questions in the chat, please feel free to ask them. I'm not in a rush anywhere. I'm pretty open to stay if you've got any more questions. Don't feel rushed or anything.
Brilliant, thank you. And obviously the video that we played, we only played a short snip of that video. I'm sure Ben won't mind if we share that video into the chat for anyone who'd like to kind of watch a little bit more of that video. So we'll do that at the end of the show, guys. We'll put that video into the chat, so you can have a look at the kind of the longer video.
For those that want to follow my journey, Instagram's probably better. I kind of use the Twitter for streaming and a bit of chat, but my Instagram's probably the place to go if you want to follow my journey this year.
Brilliant.
What are the so you mentioned about the trials in April? What are the steps building up to the games this year?
So rowing is quite an odd sport. So rowing, if you look at the American system, their American trial system is one race and one race only. You know, if you don't race well on that day, then you're out. Unfortunate. You know, you weren't the fastest person on the day. Sorry, better luck next time. Whereas rowing take a holistic look at the year. So we trial from November till April. There'll be certain dates every single couple of weeks where we do a test or an ergo, or it might be weight conditioning tests in the gym. But we have to show a continual improvement throughout the year. So actually, last Wednesday, we had our 5,000 meter first big Paralympic trial, and I PB'd, and I had a really good time, 19 minutes. Really happy, so it puts me in good stead for the next couple of trials. But next week we've got a 2K ergo test, and then 2 weeks later we've got a 2,000 meter race on the water against. And what's really cool about British rowing is the final trials are Olympic squad and Paralympic squad. So we all race 2,000 meters down at Caversham, and then we get ranked on a percentage of your gold medal time. So we get this massive spreadsheet, and it shows you whether the men's 8 was fastest, the men's quad, the lightweight women's double, or PR1 or PR2. And I think that's really cool for a sport to be so inclusive. You know, I train with the able-bodied people every single day, and I think that's another cool bit about British rowing. But yeah, so I guess the short-term goal, Shane, is I'm trying to break my own world record next Wednesday for the 2K test. That's my short-term goal. And then my long-term goal is to be on that podium at Tokyo 2021. And hopefully we'll be in a good place to do it.
Well, we certainly wish you all the very best of luck, and we'll be watching you on your journey as well. Channel 4, cheering you on. So, I mean, have we had any more questions, Alex, on the chat?
Just a lot of people, Ben, just thanking you, and you know they've taken a lot from this, and yeah, just a big thank you. Really, we've shared your Instagram as well in the chat. Thanks to James, our moderator, who's in the background there working away for us. So yeah, a big thank you for tonight. And guys, obviously, you can watch this back on the link, on the same link that you watched this on live. So please do that. Please remember, you can like and share the video. And yeah, it'd be great to have you back on again at some point, Ben, to kind of see how you're getting on.
Yeah, I'm happy to come back. And you know, for just a quick message to those that can't watch it live and have watched it recorded, if you have any questions, you can send them to Shane or Alex, and you know, I can write a response back. You know, that's what I'm here to do. So hopefully, no one goes missing. No one goes without.
That's amazing. Thank you, Ben. That's great. Thank you, everyone at home who's joined us tonight. We look forward to you joining us again soon. Thank you.